future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Wow, what an audience. Thanks so much, folks, for tuning in. And you've tuned in to Dr. Judy WTF. And yes, that is What the Freud here at ubnradionetwork.com. And I'm Walt Lusk, your host, and we have a very exclusive and very special guest in studio. We will introduce in the flash. But, of course, Dr. Judy here as well. This is a call-in show, and even with guests. So if you want to call in, feel free. And our number is area code 323-843-2826. And you can get on the couch and with Dr. Eric with any kind of emotional ouch that you may have. And trust me, it's a powerhouse tonight. It'd behoove you to pick up the phone and dial now while the lines are open. We are on Stitcher and iTunes, and you can pull us, of course, at UBN Radio for other shows. And we actually have Dr. Eric Pearl in studio. He is actually the founder of the Reconnection and is featured on Dr. Oz, New York Times, CNN, and actually has spoken at the United Nations as well. So we have a very honored and esteemed guests. Reconnective healing frequencies is what we're going to talk about. Completely transcends energy healing and the complex rituals and techniques. So, Dr. Eric, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
It's our pleasure to have you here. And I don't know if you have a copy of the book on your screen, but here is a copy of the book. Awesome. Okay. And
what's the title of the book, Dr. Judy?
It is called The Reconnection, which is a word near and dear to my heart because we deal with healing human disconnect. And I'm really very interested to know how you approach reconnection. And we can kind of compare notes because where I get very excited is when I reach points where universal truth paths cross. And that to me is the synergy model. And I know I read a little bit about that, about the 1 and 1 and 3 is the 3 phenomenon. And you talk about that in the healing process, which I really, really love. So I'm very excited to hear about your work.
Because the background of our show really is the healing of human disconnect. Because we believe that we as individuals, we as couples, families, spouses, employees, nations are more disconnected with each other and ourselves than ever.
I think the whole concept of disconnection is really a concept of perspective/illusion. Because I believe that we are placed here to appear as individuals. Male, female, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, young, old, universally attractive, not so universally attractive. And we're raised to look for what makes us special and unique. Grow up looking for what makes you. You're special, you're unique, what are your gifts? And all of this becomes a separation. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not as if we're not existing in some level of separation. The individual rays of the sun are all individual rays of the sun. Yet ultimately, take any one ray of the sun. It's a holographic representation of the entirety of the sun. Chop it up into 100 pieces or a million pieces. Mm-hmm. It's 100 or a million total representations of the sun. Mm-hmm. So each of the rays really are the same, in a sense. And they're all of the same source, representations of the source, so they're all one. We, I believe, are representations, totally holographic representations of, call it God, call it love, call it the intelligence of the universe. It doesn't care whether we call it hell, and we care. We kill each other over the whole concept, but whatever name we want to use. Mm-hmm. And it's time that we start to look for compassion. for compassion in a way that allows us to recognize that we are so connected that when one child cries in one part of the planet, 100 children weep somewhere else. When one child laughs, 100 children laugh. And to develop a willingness to look at others and say, instead of what makes us different and special, what makes you and I the same? Now, this is a fear that we have. We don't want to ask what makes us the same, because we're afraid that if we are the same, we're no longer unique. We'll lose our identity. Yet in reality, when we recognize that we are the same, then we recognize that we're all part of a truly greater, more significant picture. And that's when we can start digging through our old underwear drawers and throw out the T-shirts that say, "Kiss me, I'm Jewish," "Kiss me, I'm Irish," "Kiss me, I'm Italian," and get new ones that say, "Kiss me, I'm you." But our fear of losing our identity, it's really a key fear, because if you look at the concept of fear and love, we view them as opposites, unrelated in a sense. But they're very related. They're not necessarily so opposite, because if we distill everything down, what really is fear except the fear of not being loved? Therefore, what really is fear except the fear of not being loved? And at our deepest level, when we understand that our true essence is love, then what really is fear except the fear of not existing? And there we are in the cycle of understanding why we hold on to the individuality of our identity, when really I believe that we're here in this individuality to discover that we're all really truly one.
Well, it's no coincidence that we met last week, none at all, because
Absolutely not.
We've been speaking this language for many, many years, and I'm delighted to meet you and talk about my very famous subject, which is interconnection. And I think absolutely there's so much power in interconnection. And yes, I love my individuality, of course. You know, I want to pick out my shirt. I want to pick out the hairstyle. I want to pick out the book that I'm writing and its cover and all of that good stuff. And it's really cool to have that. And it's really very wonderful that you express it differently. And that's to be celebrated.
I like that too.
Yeah,
Believe me.
I know you do. And then there's that other piece. There's that other piece that
it's a deeper knowingness
yes.
of us being one, where then what we're doing for the individuality of our appearance and such becomes a decoration.
Right.
But not necessarily intrinsically who we are. I believe we're placed here. We come in these seemingly masks of individuality for us to recognize that they're really a mask.
Well, you're preaching to the choir, and I want to know how you do your work with your patients.
I'd like to know that too.
I would. And I did read something
me too.
that was very interesting to me, and I can most definitely relate, is that you said in your book that we're not the healers. That you as a doctor, myself as a doctor, we're not the healers. And I interpreted that to mean that we're a medium, a channel, if you will, or we're a how would you call it? A vehicle.
Catalyst.
Catalyst.
I
Okay.
kind of like catalyst.
A catalyst for transformation. And when a patient, client, whatever you want to call that person, walks into the room, that person is bringing with him or her a vulnerability and a hope that you can catalyze something that they themselves cannot, because we all have blind spots and we're all stuck. And I know that your background is chiropractic health. Is that part of your background?
Yes, I'm a doctor of chiropractic by license.
Okay, and I love the metaphor of the chiropractically correct, because I use it a lot in my practice. Like you're chiropractically off, and I also use the cracked lens of perception. That's another metaphor I like to work with. So it's not like we're sick. It's just that sometimes our alignment is off, and then when we can have that other person, and I think because we're wired to connect, that other hand is the circuitry that completes that connection. And that's a very, very special thing, because then it's no longer a me and no longer a you. and it becomes a very beautiful place where the you of you, which is the piece of me that's been split off, and the me of me, which is a piece of you that's been split off, we connect, and then through that energy synergy, something occurs there that's meant to be. That's just what I call it, the universal force, call it unconditional love, call it healing, you know, call it what you
Call it a
will.
return to balance, maybe, and call it something that allows for the removal of an interference. See, I believe that the body is designed perfectly and it doesn't need anything added to it. And this is not just the physical body, but it's our essence, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. We don't need anything added to this perfect design. We just don't need any interference. And a lot of the healing approaches try to add things.
You mean like medication, for example? I'm using
Medication,
that
for
as
example.
a
Let's use
perfectly
that one.
obvious example, right?
Absolutely. And, well, in chiropractic, for example, the first chiropractic patient didn't have neck pains or back pains or headaches. The first chiropractic patient was deaf. And the person, D.D. Palmer, who discovered chiropractic, found a vertebra in this person's spine that was out of position, repositioned it, and it allowed the brain and the body to communicate again. It removed the interference, and the person regained their hearing.
Beautiful.
So really, pure chiropractic, which is only really known by about 30% of practicing chiropractors anyway, is something that pays no attention to symptoms or diagnosis or aches, pains, problems such as that. They just look for an interference in the brain-body communication and remove it, get out of the way, and allow the power that made the body to heal the body.
I love that, because Walt and I have been speaking on air for over 2 years about how we are born whole and complete, and then we're shadowed over by this interference. And so it's really my job, our job, to communicate how to clear the pathways to healing. And this is it's a concrete example that everything's in place, right? And so what you're just doing is restoring. It's a restorative. Rather than an additive, it's a restorative.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you could phrase it that way. That's an interesting way of putting it. What happens is that it really, what we're doing is we're reconnecting with our original self, the part of us that we tend to experience in between lifetimes. When we return to that light that we all come from, that we all return to. And we understand love in a broader concept beyond anything we've got words for here. And we understand that there's a reason for everything, and everything makes perfect sense. And in that fullness, there, we're actually learning to reconnect with that fullness of consciousness back here, which allows us to vibrate at a higher level of truth, of oneness, of unity. This vibration changes our energy levels, our light emissions, informational exchange, resonance. It happens through entrainment. For example, here, scoot towards me a second, or I'll scoot towards you.
Okay.
Take one hand and hold it open, just like that. Good. Hold it right there, and I'm just going to bring this mic towards my mouth. Pardon that sound. Now, we're going to watch your fingers. You hold them still. I'm going to bring my hand down. See how your ring finger starts to move like that?
Yes.
Good. Now what I do is I find the feeling where I'm connected, where I'm in tune with what's going on, and I pull and I stretch with it. And the movement begins to vibrate throughout the hand. Now watch your index finger.
It's beautiful.
And what does this feel like when I'm doing this?
It feels very, well, you used a word in your book, stringy. It's like there's strings. Like
Well,
there's
sometimes
like there's a connection, there's a manipulation in a good way of
see how all your fingers are now
energy
curved
field.
or curled inward. When we had started, They were
So
here.
is that like Uri Geller bending spoons,
No.
but you're bending my fingers?
No, I'm not bending them.
You're not
You
bending
hold your
them.
fingers there for a
Okay.
second. Watch what happens. I just come in. Are you moving your fingers?
I'm not.
No, your fingers are moving themselves.
Right.
According to the researchers, what's
Okay.
happening is that you're interacting with a new level of energy, light, and information that hasn't been here before. And our physical tissue, the movement is a shift to learn to carry and accommodate what's been going on. Let me give you the background of
Oh,
how
so
this
that we're
happened.
wired for this energy. Is that what you're saying? That we're, in other words,
Well,
this
I
is...
believe that. That wasn't what I was saying, but I do
Okay,
believe that.
okay.
I do believe that.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
For the listeners, the background of this in about 90 seconds is that, yes, I practiced as a doctor of chiropractic for about 12 years when one night a few strange things occurred. A lamp next to my bed turned itself on, woke me up. My bedroom door was open, which was closed when I went to sleep. I felt as if someone was in my house. I got up with a knife and a can of pepper spray and my Doberman pincher, and I went hunting. I couldn't find anyone. I went back to sleep. I went into my office on that Monday, and my patients started telling me they were feeling multiple sets of my hands or other hands resting on them when I wasn't touching them at all. Their eyes started moving, darting back and forth. Their fingers would move. Their legs would kick. They were seeing colors they'd never seen, smelling flowers they'd never smelled. Kids with cerebral palsy or epilepsy were suddenly walking and running and playing and not having seizures, not needing their medications. Patients were coming in showing laboratory results where tumors had vanished. Their doctors were calling saying, "What did you do?" I said, "I didn't do anything, and don't tell anyone." And of course, the more I said that, the more everyone spoke.
Of course.
And and pretty soon patients started asking me to teach this. And I said, "You've got to be insane." I said, "I'm waving my hands in the air, looking like an idiot. You go outside, wave your hands in the air, tell me what, your neighbors say." But more and more my patients would tell me when they left my office, they went home and they drove up to their house, their automatic garage door opened before they hit the button to open it. They went inside, their lamp or their television started turning itself off and on. They felt sensations in their hands. They held their hands near someone in their family. Their relatives started having healings. And that's when we began to recognize that once we interact with what today science calls the reconnective healing frequencies, something changes within us that not only allows us to access healings for ourselves, but once we learn how to become familiar with it and play with it, it allows us to facilitate healings for others. So as this was occurring, the scientists, the researchers started coming, saying they want to see what's happening here, because the healings are very different than energy healing, than Reiki, Jirage, and Shin, Qigong, Alpha, Beta, Delta, Gamma, than the different techniques we have. They said the healings that tend to appear to be fairly instantaneous, and they tend to be lifelong. You don't need to come back and get them again and again.
So what is the difference in healing and curing, which you mentioned in your book?
Well, cure...
Because if you say they're healing and whatever they had is gone,
no,
right?
let's try it this way. Remember when you were a kid and there were a lot of jokes about the various religions, and there was a joke about someone dies, they go to heaven, they're given a tour, and they walk past each of the room. And this is the room with the Protestants, and this is the Jews, and this is this is that, this is the, and then the guide goes, shh. They walk past that room. Why do you have to be quiet? That's the Catholics. They think that they're the only ones who are there. That was the joke. Now, listen, there's equal jokes about every religion. It's just to make a point. Medicine believes they own the word cure. And that's what reminds me of the joke.
Okay.
So don't use the word cure.
Okay. I was
Because
just
you'll
curious.
be accused of practicing medicine.
Right. And the medical community's got an amazingly scary stronghold here in the United States.
Right. Now,
Usually.
that's only half the reason not to use the word cure, at least at this level of healing. The other is because cure is too limited a word.
Oh my.
Cure, treatment, and therapy are words that are based upon symptoms and diagnosis. But healing, true healing, pays no attention to that. Now, a lot of people who call themselves healers focus on where's the problem and what's it caused by and how can I fix it, and did it come from this past life? Does it come from the liver? Does it come from this? Does it come from that? But that's because they're following pseudo-medical model. We can really rise above that model today. And healing simply allows us to become the witness and the witnessed, the seer and the seen, the observer and the observed, to feel, interact with, and become a catalyst for healings. It's sort of, as you mentioned before, the power of three becoming a greater power of one. The power of three being one, the recipient, two, the healing practitioner, and three, God, love, or the universe. Choose the word you're happiest with, vibrating at that level. And when we stop trying to do and find the problem and fix it, we instead evolve to a level where we allow ourselves to witness and observe the perfect orchestration of God, love, and the universe structuring these healings, instead of us doing it in our ways according to our limited, conscious, human, educated minds. I don't know how this works. No one really knows how this works, but this is why science is studying reconnective healing. The researchers came, they did a different test. They're still doing tests and evaluations. And what they were saying, what they're starting to say all along from the beginning, was that we think you're bringing through a level of healing that hasn't been here before. And I'm saying, how can you say that? And they said, well, it's really energy that hasn't been here before. But it's not energy. It's light and information. And I'm saying, well, this is really confusing. How can we make it simple? They said, well, visualize this huge, vast, endless, multidimensional universe. No beginning, no end. And within it is this giant bubble or balloon. The wall or the cell of the balloon or the bubble is comprised of height, width, depth, and time. And we live in a bubble or balloon of time here. Everything inside of our bubble or balloon has been energy. Our techniques have given us different subsets or portions of that energy. Reconnective healing, by virtue of having no technique and not being a technique, doesn't give us those subsets of energy. It allows us to access all of the energy that we're able to access.
So it's unlimited.
Through all of the energy that we're able to access through our techniques without needing any technique at all. And I said, but that doesn't sound new. That sounds like something we always could have done. I said, we always could have done that, they said, but we learn through teachers, and teachers tend to teach us technique. There are very few masters. The difference is that the masters recognize that the gift of the technique only comes when you transcend the technique itself. It's like the training wheels help us find our balance on the bicycle, but we can't master the bicycle until we remove the training wheels. And we're either here to master the bicycle with training wheels, or we're here to master the bicycle itself. We're either here to master energy healing techniques, or we're here to master healing itself. And you ultimately are here to make a choice in that arena. So what happens is, by letting go of technique, we access all of the energy that's been here. That's a gift we've always had. But now something new is available, because today time is moving faster. Not faster from point A to point B, but time is moving faster in all directions at once. So time is expanding. Our bubble or balloon of time is expanding. So as you blow up a bubble or a balloon and it expands, it becomes more thin, more sheer, more permeable. What's been here within time is now able to interact with what's been not just old, but outside of that, timeless. So we're receiving timeless for the first time. A, time is moving faster. B, time is expanding. C, time is disappearing, which ultimately is that D, time is an illusion. What reconnective healing allows us to do is to function in our true existence of being timeless beings, and therefore leave the illusion of time behind.
Which also brings to question aging. Okay, if there's no time, right, then there's no aging, because aging has a time span. So the cell is formed, and then the cell gets old, and the cell dies, as an example of the physicality. So in this way of being around the healing process, There is no beginning, middle, and end because there's no time, and so it's an ageless process.
Precisely.
Right.
So that's why I said in the beginning, the scientists came and they said the healings are fairly instantaneous and they're lifelong. Now later they said they appear to be instantaneous, but they're not instantaneous. And I said, well, if it appears to be instantaneous, how can it not be instantaneous? They said, because to be instantaneous requires an instant of time. And these are happening outside of time. So they're timeless, which explains why the healings appear to be lifelong. They're not just lifelong. They don't dissipate over time because time has
There
no
is no
effect
time.
on them.
Got it.
Right.
Right.
So not only do the healings take place outside of time, but they exist outside of time, allowing us to become more timeless beings. So these are all insights. But if you ask me exactly how it works, all I know is we step in, we feel the frequencies, we resonate at a level, and it's like if you took a tuning fork and you bang it, it will vibrate at a certain level and a certain tone. You hold a second tuning fork up by it, pretty soon they both vibrate similarly. That's the entrainment. Well, here you entrain with aspects of timeless light. And as the light from our cells entrain with this higher timeless level, it becomes what the scientists say is more coherent or more harmonic. Now, just to back up for the listening audience and viewing audience for a moment, is that, we've always heard spiritually and metaphysically that we are light. But really, it wasn't until recently where it's been more scientifically documented, specifically the work of Dr. Fritz Albert Popp in Germany, and those continuing his work have shown that the DNA in each of our cells emits specific levels of light. That when our health is diminishing, the light is measurably dimming. When our health is coming back up, that light is coming back up. Of approximately 24 studies on reconnective healing, 6 of them were geared towards DNA. Shows that these frequencies actually restructure, or as I like to say, reconnect, our very DNA, bringing about that more coherent level of light, which seems to allow for the timelessness of the healings. You see, in reality, our bodies don't heal the way we were taught, and our brains don't work the way we were taught. Our bodies, we were taught, heal through biochemicals. And we know the biochemical model is pretty much dead today. Today we know the body heals, as we said, through energy, frequency, vibration, resonance, entrainment, and light. And this light model explains things that the biochemical model couldn't explain. It explains why something can happen. Well, with biochemicals, if something happens to one part of your body, it has to send an impulse to your brain has to send a message somewhere else, produce the biochemicals have to travel. All of that takes time. Light is everywhere at once, so it allows us to function outside of time. Our brains don't work the way we were taught. We were taught that there were little compartments in our brain. One was for speech, one was for memory, one was for this, one was for that. We know from the works of doctors Carl Pribram and Carl Lashley and others that model is also considered obsolete today. We know the information within our brains is diffuse throughout our brains, and that it's not really within our brains, but our brains are merely transducers receiving information from this greater field that science today calls zero-point field, maybe what used to be referred to as the etheric field or something else. And science, of course, in the late 1800s was horrified. People believed in an invisible etheric field, so science disproved it. Unfortunately for science, the field didn't recognize it had been disproven, so in the early 1900s again, the field came back and science disproved it again, and then it came back, and now science uses it. So they call it zero-point field, and everyone calls it the field, and they wink. We play in the field all the time. Kids on a school bus, one child falls asleep, another child stares at them until they wake up. They're in the field. You're writing a paper, your mind is drifting, you're thinking about something, and suddenly someone from high school passes through your mind, and the next thing you know, they call you. You're in the field.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
One of the concepts that I love to toy with is a concept that I call T-mailing each other.
Hmm.
Okay, so telepathically emailing, because one of my, we talk about human disconnect, right, Walt, the cell phone and the computer, and I thought, what a beautiful world we can live in if we could be so attuned to each other that we could literally telepathically email each other. And of course, I've experienced this myself in just the way you said it, that I'm thinking about somebody and they show up, or coincidences keep aligning in my life, even meeting you, even the fact that your title of your book is The Reconnection, because I'm coming up with a book called Healing Human Disconnects. So we're, on the same pathway in the DNA strands and reconnecting the DNA strands, and the concept of, well, you're calling it universal force. It's the same, that there's this concept of unconditional love, which is a healing force unto itself, which is the most powerful healing force on the entire
Absolutely.
planet.
It truly is. Yep.
And as a psychologist, I have to say it's the most underutilized force. And psychologists don't typically bring it into the treatment plan, okay? Why? Because it's something that's inherent in our being. And so that there is a difference between treating and symptoms, and when we concentrate on the symptoms, as you said, then we're pretty much cooking the symptom in its own squat, and we're bringing that symptom into its own squat. Okay, so the way I look at symptoms is as hieroglyphics that point to the disconnect. There's a disconnect there. Okay, whether it be from a theoretical point, from a psychological point, it starts with mother-infant disconnect, but it doesn't matter. There's a disconnect, a strand disconnect, a string disconnect, an energetic disconnect. It's a disconnect, and whenever
So
there's
your T-Mobile is one level of reconnecting. I'm sorry, your T-mail. Your
T-mail, right? So I wanted. I know I got kind of I got tangential on my T-mailing, but the concept is what I want to say is
not really
that
tangential at all, because listen. So you think about someone and they email you.
Yeah.
You stare at a friend who's asleep. They wake up. Da, 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 da. So people who are geniuses, people who are psychics, people who are healers, it's no big secret.
Right.
We are accessing this field.
Absolutely.
So think of it. Let's give the audience an analogy that I like to use, which is, think of a computer. A computer is a metal box. By itself, it does very little until you install a software program. Then you get information out of the computer and you access that internet field out there somewhere. Upgrade the software, more information from within the computer, greater access to that internet field out there somewhere. So what if our brains are our hardware?
Yeah.
What if our DNA is our software? And what if those 6 studies talking about the restructuring or reconnecting of the DNA are accurate? And they are. Then what reconnective healing is actually doing is facilitating the equivalent of a human software upgrade, which allows not only better access to the information within the brain, but better access to the multidimensional, timeless, zero-point field out there somewhere. And since we go where our attention goes, we can't just become aware of it. But this is actually us on the precipice of becoming more multidimensional beings. And this, I feel, is something that you're teaching. I believe it's something that I'm sharing with people. I think it's something that everyone out there is tuning in to hear about, because we know inside we are driven to become more timeless, multidimensional beings. And this is the time, if you'll pardon the excuse of that word, the use of the word.
I understand. It is because one of the questions I have is for people who are listening, and I believe that we're all healers unto each other.
Yep.
And that we, we're each other's medicine or each other's poison. And of course I see this in treatment. I see couples come into therapy and they do what I call a what the Freud. Okay, they go through the spin cycle of causing chaos, defense mechanisms, and breakdowns. Why? Because they've been disconnected at the causal level, from my perspective, at the seed level. And that disconnection creates wounds that then create these horrible negative core beliefs that get tripped up in the process. So, okay, so if we're all healers unto each other, then how can we as a human race, and this is a topic that I'm jumping on next, is healing global disconnect. After I'm finished my book, Healing Human Disconnect,
Yep.
Walt, I'll be calling you to, well, so what do you think of that paragraph?
Yeah, but
Well,
So
I'm
relax.
really
I'm pretty flexible this weekend.
But do
oh,
you
that's
really,
awesome.
Do you really think they're two different things?
No, they're
Because
not two different
maybe
things.
Healing globally, to me, looking at things globally is looking at the reflection of who we are individually.
100%.
healing
I
individually.
love-
And if
and
you
I-
heal if you heal individually, and a bunch of individuals are healed, then it's a global phenomenon.
Yes, and the other part of this is that people who focus on healing globally often like that because they can be more anonymous in it and don't have to unveil their soul and feel vulnerable in their sharing one-on-one. So they lose part of the gift of their own transformation of opening up and sharing, because they just say, well, I want to heal the trees, I want to heal the water, I want to send a healing to a government, and which you
as
never
you
want to send a healing to a government. You only want to spiritually manipulate that government to believe the way you do, as if what you believe is right and what they believe is wrong. But when we work one-on-one, we unveil ourselves. In the process of healing others, we're healing ourselves, and healing ourselves, we're healing others, and we make better decisions and choices as we raise our children, as we go into governments, as we do other things. And the next time we look at the planet, it's green again.
Well, it's gorgeous that you're saying that, because that's actually my panel 9, and it's all hologrammatic. And when when we heal on that individual level, it reverberates to the other, and then to the family, and then to the community, and then to the country, and then globally. And
yes.
And then
You
they
were
tell two
mentioning-
friends, and then they tell two friends.
right,
Right.
And this
Was
is,
that Breck? Was that a Breck commercial?
Yes.
Yes, I remember that one.
And then this business of isming and schisming, as I call it. You know, I'm a Judaism, and then Catholicism, and this ism, and not that you can't take your ism and ride it as a beautiful vehicle, because there's a lot within the isms that are beautiful and transformative and wisdom loaded, if you will. It's just that when our isms become schisms, and then we have the clash of the isms, that it becomes problematic.
So view the isms as windows onto a bigger picture.
Okay.
Let's say we want to understand God, love, and the intelligence of the universe, and we'll use Catholicism as a window, Judaism as a window,
Sure.
Christianity,
Right.
Islam, and then there are different forms of Islam and Judaism and Christianity.
course.
Well, I was going to say, and then that window
And-
was also a prism, and we're looking at that from our perspective.
Right.
And so
Or glasses.
we see one thing out of our window generation after generation after generation, and we meet someone else and it says, no, the window shows something else. And we argue over who's right because we think one negates the other, instead of recognizing that the more we see, it actually expands the picture
I
that we're
love
looking
how
from the
you
inside
think.
out.
I love how you think, because that is how I see things. That we're one soul, and we fracture off into, call it these isms, and ultimately our job is to come together as a united humanity. And instead of using these isms as the schisms to divide, how about a different perspective from this lens, from that lens?
Or try this. How about at least using the analogy I used of windows?
Okay.
What if we walk outside of the buildings? Because even if we look out of every single window, we'll never see the whole picture, because each window is limited by the window frame, and the view is further limited by the wall that supports the window
Beautiful.
frame.
Yeah.
So only when we are going to join hands, go outside, go up on the roof, have a party,
Right,
can we
that
see
perspective.
360 degrees.
Beautiful.
But what's funny is that some of us are so attached to those isms, to our windows, that we bring our windows up with us to the party. And the moment you bring a window back up, you reduce
Closes
the
it
view again. It's the
Yes.
same thing in the healing world. reconnective healing teaches us how to completely transcend the isms of techniques. Will I do Reiki? Will I do this Reiki? Will I do that Qigong? I do this Jinshin and Jorei.
Sure.
And then the people want to say, well, I want to learn reconnective healing and let go of all these windows. And I want to bring my window up and add it. And you can't add. You reduce when you do that. And that's, we like to hide behind our windows because then we follow the rules. And we're pretty much naked and unveiled when we step out behind it. Now it's just us and our essence and our interaction. And it can be a little frightening because there's nothing to hide behind. And it can feel frightening until we understand that there is no reason to hide. This is our actual drive, is to not be hiding. Is that our safety zones that we've built for us really keep us in fear of what happens when we go out of that safety zone where the rest of the world and the universe actually exists. You know, with reconnective healing, I've taught close to about 100,000 people so far how to do this work. Hospitals, universities, United Nations.
Okay.
And people come and we teach to the lay public, the mainstream. As a matter of fact, here, the infamous of all dates, the infamous September 11th, we're going to give a seminar at the downtown Millennium Biltmore Hotel. It'll be the 11th through the 15th. What we'll do on the 11th, that Friday night, we'll give a 3-hour presentation. We talk about the history of the work, the theory, the philosophy, the science.
You and other practitioners?
I'm the key presenter, and I will bring people up to help in the teaching process.
I see.
Then what we'll do is I'll bring up volunteers from the audience with medically documented physical, visible limitations, for example, so we can give demonstrations of healings live right there so we can see the reality of it. For instance, 3 nights ago, I presented at Awakenings bookstore in Laguna Hills, and there was a woman there who, for the past 20 years, if she tried to raise her arms, she would look like about 10 minutes to 4 o'clock on a clock because she had injuries and surgeries and screws physically locking her arms into those positions. We let her feel this in her fingers for just a minute or two like we did with you. And after those 20 years of not even being able to shampoo her own hair, she now has her full range of motion and she's pain-free. So we give live demonstrations of the healings. We let you feel this in your hands. And we will begin to teach you how to utilize this on that Friday night, September 11th. If you want to learn the work on a basic level, self-healing, and to be able to help your immediate circle of friends and family, we continue on that Saturday and Sunday, the 12th and the 13th. So let's say, Dr. Judy, that you came to the seminar. What would happen is I demonstrate a level of the work from the stage, and we'd all go to massage tables. So you might stand at the head of a massage table. Someone else will lie down in front of your massage table. We'll take your hands, help you find these frequencies, feel them, work with them, and right in front of your eyes, you'll witness the person on your table go into involuntary movements of their fingers, their arms, their legs, their eyes. And you'll trade places with them so you get to experience it while they work with you. By the way, the entire LA seminar is simultaneously via headset translated into Spanish to make it more accessible to the public.
Okay.
And then we'll go back to the chairs, talk about philosophy, science, question and answer, demonstrate a new level of the work, go back to the tables again. So we'll continue that Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. But if you want to learn this at the highest level, what's the professional or what we call foundational level, which doesn't mean you need to become a professional, but isn't it nice if you're doing this work to bring it through at that highest level, then you'll continue Monday and Tuesday, where we'll bring in volunteers from outside the seminar who don't even know what to expect, so you can begin to work on your own professional sessions, learning right there under our guidance. We'll teach you how to do this holographically. We'll teach you how to do it via distance, so you can work on people anywhere in the world. We'll teach you how to build, develop, set up your own practice. We'll teach you aspects of subtlety and nuance so you can completely release and transcend technique. And by the end of that Tuesday, the 15th of September, I can pretty much make you 2 promises, which are A, you will be able to do anything and everything in this field of energy healing and what science says is and beyond energy that I can do. And B, you will be able to do anything and everything in this field of energy healing and beyond that any human being.
I want to tell you how much I respect that, because I as a psychologist, I want to make my system, is what I call it, so simple and
The
accessible
mind map system.
to allow people
Right.
to think like a shrink.
Right.
Okay, so what you're saying is the same thing, is that you're not hoarding this information to yourself. What you're doing is you're teaching other people so that they can quickly access it and utilize this.
Well, that's why I
for
said it's
themselves.
not only you'll be able to do anything and everything in this field that I can do, you'll be able to do anything and everything in this field of energy healing and beyond that any human being anywhere on this planet can do, whether they were raised by monks in a cave in a mountaintop in Tibet, fed grains of seed, each one blessed by its own lama, whether they've mastered 33 techniques and created 33 other techniques. It doesn't matter the story any longer. Today is the day for us to learn to demystify the healing process, allow it to become clear and transparent for everyone, to transcend our techniques and let them go so we can facilitate instantaneous healings for people that are lifelong. And if we're not willing to transcend our techniques, we really need to ask ourselves why.
That's
if
right.
we're not really willing to demystify the healing process, we need to ask ourselves why. And if we're not willing to ask ourselves why, we need to ask ourselves why we're not willing to ask ourselves
Perfect.
why.
Well, the medical community, I'm sure, has a field day
Yeah.
with that one.
Yeah.
You know, I will tell you, of the approximately 100,000 people I've trained so far, a good 20%, 20,000,
I believe
are
it.
mainstream
Yeah.
medical healthcare practitioners, doctors, nurses.
I'm sure they're learning that what they're doing
physical
there's got to be a
researchers.
better, easier, faster, quicker
You know,
way
we,
to do
we
it.
think of the AMA, for example,
Mhm.
as one animal, like a dog with a head, a tail, and 4 legs that moves and thinks the same way. And it does not. It's comprised of people like we are. And you know what they say, progress often marches forward one funeral at a time.
One funeral at a time.
As the newer, younger generation of healthcare practitioners are coming into play, and the older ones with their more limited thinking are stepping out to make
Well,
room for them. We are expanding in our consciousness.
Well, that's why I was so excited to have you here, because as the founder of the Psychological Healing Center, okay, it's a healing center. I'm always interested in different modalities of healing. And so there are many pathways, and this is a pathway. And when is this happening? On the 11th of September at the Biltmore, did you say?
Yeah, it's
Where's the
September.
Biltmore? I have no sense of direction.
Oh, well, it's downtown LA.
Downtown LA,
it's a
September
gorgeous
11th.
old
What time?
landmark hotel. Well, it'll start Friday night, September 11th at, I believe, 6:30.
Okay.
Good to get there earlier. It'll be for
Okay.
3 hours
Okay.
approximately. And then if you're there to learn, the level 1 and level 2 will be level 1 training program is Saturday and Sunday. Level 2 is Monday and Tuesday, and those are full days. They're from approximately 9 or 9:30 in the morning until about 7 in the evening.
So it's a full day.
And if folks want to get more information, because we're about out of time,
Okay.
where can they get more information, Dr. Crow?
Well, just like the book is called The Reconnection, Heal Others, Heal Yourself, the website is The Reconnection. You have to use the word thereconnection.com.
Okay. And are you speaking any other places or any other involvements?
All over the world. If you go to the web, I'm leaving in a few days for Colombia and Brazil, and then London and Germany and Brussels. All the you can attend any seminar you want because I'm always teaching in English, but it's also simultaneously translated into the language of the country I'm in, except when I'm in England and Australia and Canada.
Really?
Really?
Okay.
Which we will be doing London this year also. I think October.
I love London. When are you going to Montreal? Which is, I have two
Your home.
hometowns.
Your
I
home.
love Montreal.
Budapest, Hungary, which is where
Budapest.
I was born there. So I'll try to go if you go there.
You speak the
And
language, the
I
most
do.
complicated language on the planet.
Fluent,
I think.
again, I speak fluent Hungarian. And
Should be your
I
translator.
speak some French because I grew up in Montreal, Canada, but mostly I studied French in school.
Yeah,
so.
I'm always cautious when you make that toast in Hungarian. How do you say it?
Which one?
When you toast. Cheers.
Egészségedre.
Yeah.
That
You
one?
have to
You mean
say
you
it
actually
very
know that word?
carefully.
Egészséged. Oh, yes,
Yes.
you're right, because there's a word in
Yeah,
there that means
could
your
sound
ass.
like your ass
exactly.
instead of the
You're
toast.
good. You're
Yes.
good. I didn't know.
You didn't ask.
I did. Yeah, now I know. Okay.
Egészségedre?
Egészségedre.
Egészségedre.
Because if you say egészségedre,
Shegedra
that
is
means
different than
you're-
shegedra. It means your ass.
That's
I know.
That's it.
There you go.
Like
And
our
that's
little-
why
our little
we're
inside.
at the WTF show this
Pretty
evening.
much.
Is that different than is that different than if we shagged her?
Oh, that's a whole different. Of course,
Yeah, a little
Walt
bit.
would have to bring
And
that in.
don't start because you don't know what I'm not saying, and I do.
Well, it
Okay.
is the Dr. Judy. What the
Freud.
Freud?
Right.
Of course it is. So I'd love to come. I'd
Well,
love to
I think
come.
you should come.
I think I'd love to
That
come.
would be wonderful.
Yeah, it would be really wonderful. I want to experience this. I did a little bit. Are we almost out of time?
We are out.
We
of
are
time.
out.
We don't
Okay,
even have time,
so-
unfortunately, for a shrink that tune.
Are you
tune.
serious? We do not.
I'm very serious.
Okay.
We're done.
Well, then we will shrink the tune
Yeah,
another day.
We'll have to save it.
and
The conversation was so enlightening that I just decided
Enlightening,
we
yes.
we decided
Enlightening,
to
yes.
Yes.
Energy, light, and information.
yes
So it
decided
was a
just to
really.
make an executive decision, and we're just going to continue the conversation.
I liked it. I think
Yeah.
it was a perfect executive decision,
Yeah.
Walt.
Okay.
So it was a true pleasure to
Dr.
have
Pearl
you here.
is just
Dr.
really a
Pearl.
true blessing.
Dr. Eric Pearl, the Reconnection.
And if they want to know more about you,
Reconnection.
they go to the reconnection.com.
.com.
Okay. And that really is, we're going to have to disconnect here, even though our theory and theme is healing human disconnect. I have been Walt Lusk, your host this week. And we've had Dr. Eric Pearl and, of course, Dr. Judy Rosenberg in studio. You can catch us on Stitcher. You can pull us on iTunes and YouTube as well. So if you want to write us, you can write us at info@drjudywtf. And for that, I guess we're just going to close out. So thanks for watching, and we'll have another show next week. We are actually going to probably do a review, and next week will be WTF of What the Film, and we'll be talking about and shrinking the gift.
Right, which I think is a phenomenal movie, and I'll have some interesting information for you about it. I also had the privilege of shrinking the movie, and we're going to put that clip up. I hope we can hear it.
And just remember, you think you might be done with the past, but the past
past is
isn't
not
done with you.
And that movie was filmed at my house. Yeah, they used my house.